Yep, we're on talk shows, informative roleplay, World of Warcraft, and we are live. And
All
it
right.
just popped up on my phone too, so the notifications are on. That's right, For the Roleplay just went live on Twitch.
I put up a tweet on the Twitters if you want to retweet that, John.
Okay.
I'll do the same.
Boop. Boopity boop. Okay, now let's go in here. I can't, because we're live. Hey, it's Dre. Dre's in the chat.
Dre's here. How's it going, Dre?
And Dre wins the award for being at every one of our episodes.
Mactato.
That's how he read your name.
Mactato.
I think I have yet to find anyone that has pronounced it correctly. Of course, without the benefit of an RP profile add-on to put in the... What's the word? Not exclamation point, apostrophe.
The umlauts.
I guess you'll have that. I'm not freaking German, John.
I'm gonna put an umlaut over the O, Leila, just to be, you know.
No.
Avant-garde.
My Tauren is not German.
German Tauren.
Yes.
Was that
Look
Steve? Yeah, Steve's somewhere.
Yeah,
He's probably fallen off the totem.
Look at this view.
Yeah. Probably did that a long time ago.
Oh yeah, he's down at the very bottom cruising around. I see him.
There is a Tauren druid up here with us named Huthfit.
He's leaving now. Or maybe
Get out of here. This is our perch.
Yeah. Oh, no. I throw a rock at him.
Wow, John. Wow.
I turned into a cat, Leila. Oh, he's running over here, Leila. Get ready.
He's going to attack you now, John.
Get ready, Leila.
No? I think you kind of brought it on yourself, John.
He disappeared,
now,
Leila.
see? Yep, he's after you now, John. He's coming for you.
I'll just leap off, Leila. He can't get me if I leap off.
John, that push-to-talk thing really isn't working for you, because I hear you talking on the stream and not in the Discord call.
All right, so I guess we'll get started here in what, let's say 3 minutes? About 3 minutes?
Yeah. People will file in when they need to.
Dre says standing way up there is a ripe opportunity for one good push.
I almost convinced John to jump.
Well, it's called murder, Dre. If you did that, it'd be murder.
You're a goblin. Nobody would notice.
Wow. Wow. Goblin lives matter, Leila. Green lives matter.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, that druid's still over there, Leila. It's kind of creeped me out.
Everything the light touches is our kingdom.
Oh.
What about that dark spot over there?
Are you going to hold me up, Leila, and then...
That's the Desolus. You must never go there.
Leila, hold me up, and then I'd be like the Lion King.
Circle of life.
All right.
You know you
Raz
love
is
it,
here.
Razarus.
Sorry,
You know
Raz.
this
Sorry,
is
Raz.
why you show up.
We got 11 people in the group chat. Hello, everybody.
Hello. Wow, we got all kinds of people.
That's right. That's good.
How you doing?
All here to learn how
Got
to
WoW
win.
challenges.
That's right. How to win at roleplay.
Right.
They want to know how to win at roleplay.
All right, we can teach you.
Hopefully.
We have the technology.
Just maybe not the capacity.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, I do have to.
All right then,
Let me be
sir.
in the middle.
If you would start us off,
Yeah,
give me the center here.
because I got to.
Give me a little push forward.
No, that's you're making me nervous now, sir. You're making me nervous. All right. What was that?
John, the push to talk thing. Come on, man.
No, I was just getting stuff set. I had to get clicking and clicking buttons and turning pages and getting all ready. All right, I think we're ready to rock and or roll. And so tonight, ladies and gentlemen, from the Looking for Roleplay, or for the Roleplay, Looking for Roleplay. Good Lord.
Ba-da-da-da-da.
That's right. For the roleplay, tonight we're talking about what makes a good role player. But kind of the counterbalance to last week's talk about what to avoid as a good role player. We thought it'd be great to reinforce all the things that, in our opinion, and again, remember, these are strictly our opinions, and we've brought in a few other opinions as well later on down the line from the community themselves. But tonight we're going to reinforce what we talked about last week with some good traits to use as a role player. And so tonight we're talking about the qualities of a good role player. Isn't that right, Vlad?
That's true. We're going to be talking have all kinds of different topics, and it's going to be fun. I hope we all learn something.
That's right.
And we do all understand that the whole idea of being a good role player is very subjective. Everybody has their own opinions and things that they look for and things that, they may or may not be interested in. But we tried to make a compilation of all of the traits that generally the community as a whole seem to agree upon, or things that, they would be looking for in either a role play partner or in their own role play. But we do obviously understand that the idea of good is very subjective.
Indeed. So, I guess let's get this ball rolling. Now, for those of you folks in the audience, feel free to chat away as we go along. If you have questions or something, we'll try to, get to them as soon as we can. And we've got Sencha. Hello, Sencha.
Hey, so Jim.
That's right. And Raz says all good role players have a complete sample lange? Camouflage manual.
Like
That's true. Yeah, that's true. There's that whole quest line with the camouflage by the goblins.
I think Raz said that just because he wanted to hear you try to pronounce it, John.
Probably. All right, so let's kick this off, Vlad.
Yeah, the first thing we should probably talk about, and it's kind of just a theme throughout the first couple episodes we've done, is having thick skin. Getting used to, things not going your way in roleplay. It's kind of like dating, in a sense. When you first start off, you're going around whatever city, you're randoming, you're gonna get rejected no matter what. So it's a good role player will basically, take it in stride. They'll use those bad experiences and build themselves up. Maybe what I said wasn't that interesting or whatever. They'll adapt and overcome, essentially.
Yeah, I agree. I think, you want to go high when folks go low. Is it?
Sure, I guess. If you want to...
Yeah.
Yeah. Because that's another thing. Like, you don't want to be. It's easily noticeable when you're that kind of guy. Where like the moment like someone is crappy to you, you be crappy right back. And where's that gonna get you? It's not. No one's gonna benefit anything if you're just gonna be in a shitty mood.
Right. I mean, and ultimately, if you're really in a bad spot, what's great about being in a RP, in a game, is you can log off and go do something else. Come back after a while, and hopefully those.
Be one of those ninja loggers that Cogspring hates.
Well, I don't know if you want to do that, Leila, but you know. But if it gets really bad, you know what I'm saying. You don't have to stick around.
I think it's important too to go along with thick skin is to be open to critiques by other people. There's often been times where I've seen individuals like making a genuine attempt to inform someone either about their role play or about their role play profile, or to ask a question, in an OOC fashion about a character, and somebody just really gets very offended by it and just flies off the handle where it really wasn't necessary. Either, there are some, vicious people out there. I'm certainly not saying that everybody is going to come at you with a helpful critique or coming from a helpful place or a positive mindset. But there are people that will generally, like if you're just starting out, especially, and maybe you have something in your RP profile that doesn't really make sense for your character. Maybe it doesn't match up lore wise. Maybe, it's just any number of things. And someone may, in a good-hearted way, whisper you and say, hey, this isn't entirely true, or maybe this wouldn't have happened that way, or this wouldn't be true for your character. And you do have to have, a thick skin enough to be able to accept that for what it is. And, if they are genuinely trying to be helpful, that you can't just be offended and be all, butthurt about them trying to whisper you and genuinely help you with your role play. Because not everybody is, out to just berate you over things like that. Some people genuinely want to help, especially if you maybe had like a beginner flag on your RP profile. You kind of, whether you wanted to or not, maybe giving the impression that you are open to those sorts of, suggestions by people wanting to help you advance your role play. And being able to take those critiques and criticisms is something that can be very important, especially when you're first starting out. And there's Steve.
I was gonna say, it's a lot like me if I came up and said, "Hey, Leila, the pretzel on the bottom of your dress there that you have on, that pretzel. Taurens don't eat pretzels, so so that just doesn't fit your whole." Yeah.
I think.
Well,
It's, I kind of take, maybe it's just because I'm an experienced role player, so I don't expect to get these kinds of whispers. So it's funny because I've actually had it happen before where I didn't really welcome, people just say, hey, you're doing this wrong. And again, I try to take it in stride, but there are some things I intentionally do in roleplay where it is that, it's kind of Mary Sue, or it's a little different, and I do it intentionally. And when I explain that to them, I did that intentionally. They're like, well, you probably should change that. I'm like, well, no, like I'm not like doing it. I'm not shoving it in your face or anything, but that's just the way I'm doing it. Like it's, so I suppose what I'm getting at is, if you know what you're doing is off, that's perfectly okay. Because, it goes back to if you're being non-canon or whatever, and the kind of roleplay you like, that's fine. You just got to kind of take it in stride and just let the other person know, hey, I know what I'm doing. This is wrong, but I'm going along with it. But another thing I wanted to go back to, Leila, what you mentioned was, they had, beginner role player on their thing. To me, that's kind of an invitation for advice. I think that's a good thing to mention to people. If you have TRP and you put that you are a beginner role player, you should probably expect this incoming advice that's coming from nowhere.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I think, like Sencha says, she said, I remember I asked someone about their RP and they just went off on me. I was just generally curious about their character. Whereas, of course, how dare you, Sencha? But, I think that's...
I've had some people get very defensive with me about their character. And generally, it's just because I've been trying to understand where they were even coming from. A good example of this that I often find to be true is with individuals who are role-playing Blood Elves. And for some reason, I see this more with Blood Elves than I do with any other race. And perhaps it has a lot to do with either players don't understand the process of their lore, or are just genuinely they don't care and they want to do whatever they want to do. But in order to be a blood elf, to be part of that society, there are things in lore that you would have had to have gone through, that your people would have gone through, that in and of itself is what made the blood elves. And if you're just an elf, perhaps you were a high elf and you didn't participate, or your family or whoever wasn't part of, what happened to the Sunwell, what happened when, Arthas tore through your lands, things like that. If those were not part of your character's history or your character's family history, those sorts of things, really you're probably more borderline on being a high elf and being part of that society rather than being a blood elf, if you're not associating with the elements that make a blood elf a blood elf. And oftentimes, that's what I see is blood elf characters in that respect. And if anybody tries to question or correct them about that, they really get very defensive and like kind of fly off the handle a little bit. But it's like you're giving an impression of one thing, but really are you just not caring that's not how it would be? Or are you just, ignorant of the fact that these are the things that make a blood elf and not a high elf? But yeah, people can get very defensive about that. And I don't quite understand that.
Well, again, I think it perfectly comes back to exactly this whole topic headline, which is, have a thick skin. And I think that's very true. Learn to, especially when you have new people asking you about your role play, don't say, why are you asking me that question, noob? Learn your lore. And, that hurt several times when Leila told me that. But,
well, you got to get good, John.
Got to get good. No, but no.
I got to keep you from eating toilet, all right?
I think having the thick skin goes both ways as well. If you're that experienced, like you have the experience of Vlad, and you have someone that's constantly asking you questions, I think you have to, as a good role player, you want to include these new people into the role play. Be there, of course you don't want to take up all your time, but certainly answer questions in a helpful manner and try not to just blow the new folks off, because again, the more people we have role playing, the better. So I think a great start to this conversation. Now, for you folks who don't know, Vlad is the orc here today, and I am the goblin. So yeah, Vlad's the handsome orc there, and I'm Sluffy. People have seen Sluffy on the Turwinkle Talks episode when I talked to Horde folks. Sluffy is Turwinkle's disguise that he uses, for those interviews. So, and of course, everybody loves Leila's Tauren. So, we've seen in our first episode.
Can you pronounce his name?
The Mactato. Mactato? Who said that? It was Dre, yeah, Mactato.
Yeah.
He said Mactato. Yeah. I thought that was hilarious.
Before we go into the next one, Leila, WoW Challenges has a question for us. Oh, it looks like Xanalith had answered that for him. So,
yeah, I mean, if you're familiar with MRP and XRP are fairly similar. I don't want to say they're the exact same thing, because I think XRP does have a lot of very important functions over MRP, but they're both similar in fashion of presenting RP profiles in a very lightweight, easy to use manner. TRP3 is more of, as was said, the bells and whistles. It's very much more complex, has a lot more that you can do. You can set up like even backgrounds on your profiles, and you can add pictures, from their icons and things like that. You can format them certain ways. You have a whole section of at a glance, which will tell you things that, just again, at a glance that you would notice about a character.
Play music.
Oh, yeah.
It's definitely, I think a lot of people definitely find it very overwhelming until you get more familiar with it. But at the same time, I think that a lot of people that enjoy MRP and XRP enjoy the very lightweight, easy to read, easy to use profiles and that sort of thing. XRP does a wonderful job in terms of being able to read the RP profiles from MRP as well as TRP3, with the exception of the sections such as at a glance. TRP3 does not allow for other add-ons to be able to read those sections, and that is a fault of TRP3 and not of XRP or MRP. TRP3 just simply doesn't allow for them to do that. And but XRP also will allow for you to read the profiles of people that are cross-faction who have XRP, as well as cross-server if they have XRP. That's not true for people, unfortunately, that have MRP or TRP3, but other people that are using XRP, there's definitely a great benefit to that. I would go out on a limb and say if you are using MRP, you really should probably check out XRPs. I think it has a lot of very similar elements and even a lot of better elements. I think a lot of people that use MRP are making the switch to XRP because it really is becoming the better add-on.
Wow. Okay.
Simply because you can watch other, or you can see other profiles, even across server and across faction, can't you?
Now, Leila, are you doing a video on these?
At some point.
Okay, excellent. So
it's about halfway done.
Okay,
yeah.
Excellent. So look forward to that, folks, because when Leila
It's
does
one of
something,
those
it's
things
awesome.
where it's one of those things where editing videos is the bane of my existence because I spend days and days doing it. Like,
well, when she does, they're amazing. So Leila's videos are amazing. And Millie Chicky says, I've helped a few people by giving them WoW Wiki for lore knowledge.
That's a wonderful method. I said that in the chat, and it's a great way of kind of backing up your point if someone asks for criticism or what have you. But it's a great way to just be like, here's the proof, and also they can, here's the source in which you could research the kind of character you want to do.
Right.
Yeah, WoW challenges, I'll say that, I've definitely heard of the add-on preference, getting people shunned in one form or another. I'm not really certain why people find that necessary because of the fact that MRP and XRP together and TRP3, they're completely different in terms of what your preferences are. Like I said, MRP and XRP are very lightweight, easy to use, where TRP3 definitely has all of the bells and whistles. Neither is better than the other in terms of it comes down to simply your personal preference as to what you're interested in, what you're interested in seeing. So I'm not really certain why people feel the need to go, oh, you use MRP and not TRP3, like that's lame. And like, no, like you need to respect the fact that not everybody really prefers the layout of TRP3, or you even have people that just simply, and I discussed this in my video, you have people that don't want to read text and text, this wall of text of description and character background that you can put in with TRP3. They're not interested in reading all of that about your character. They want to role play with your character. And, so I don't think that it's right to shun people based upon what RP profile add-on they use, because that's just ridiculous.
Now, I have run into guilds where the guild will say, we use this, this method, and so we prefer that you use it because then we can all work together on the same role play. And so, I've seen that happen where a guild will prefer like an MRP versus TRP3 or other way around. So I guess it's really your preference. And, if you're shunning people because they use a particular type of role play thing, I mean, ultimately, those are just tools to help add on to your roleplay. They don't necessarily make your roleplay what it is. So remember that it's just an add-on to what should be, like Leila said, let's just roleplay together and not worry about what add-on we're using.
If you're shunning people because of the RP add-on they use,
who raised you that way, Leila?
Raised you that way because you're rude. You're just being rude.
All right. So moving on, Vlad.
The next key step, I suppose, to being a good role player is being committed to role play. I mean, it's kind of like making your raids. You want to make scheduled role plays, or if kind of like what John said, if you're in an RP guild, you kind of want to get those add-ons that they use. Like there might be some guilds that there's another role play add-on that's called Dice Master, and they might use that to roll for certain things that are going on in an event. So you really should be probably not so much committed to like RP events and all that, but to be committed to your character as well, and be committed to the art that is roleplay. Generally, people will respect you for that kind of habit, and you'll find more roleplay because it's something you enjoy doing, and that you put all your time and effort in.
Yeah, because remember, I think a lot of times people forget that your role play, when you combine it with other people's, your stories intertwine. And so if you start this awesome role play and your character's integral to that guild or that your other role play partner's storyline, and all of a sudden you go, I'm not really much into this, and I'm just going to go do my own thing.
So many RP guilds fall apart because of that.
Yeah,
they'll have core members
mess stuff up. Yeah.
Yeah, that you'll have core members that are like kind of centralized around the story, and then that person leaves. And I'm not saying like his computer dies or something happens, like not that kind of like gone, but like just up and leaves. That's kind of it's a bummer.
Yeah. We talked.
Everyone else does kind of like that's just a dick move. Like what else do you want me to say?
Yeah, for example, if you've got this big role play event set up, it's integral that the storyline's coming to a big conclusion, and you're kind of one of the main characters in that storyline, and it's coming to your part of the role play, and all of a sudden you say, dungeon popped, and you leave. Oh my gosh, yeah.
Or something like mom woke me up, or mom woke up. Like just
well, yeah.
Come on, bro.
I think in addition to that, though, if you are in a situation where, say, you are not that person, but there's someone in your guild or someone in the role play that you're doing where that's the case, and this person genuinely, you can tell they have completely checked out, like through no real life, like they were saying, no, like, oh, my computer died or, family thing happened or whatever, but literally just checked out because they were no longer interested. Maybe you see them online on another character, things like that. They're not interested in whatever you were role playing with them at the time. I think that a quality of a good role player is being able to still keep that together and go with it and be able to build something off of, maybe not for every situation, maybe there's not a solution as that, but I've seen plenty of cases where if, say, there's a guild RP, maybe the guild leader or something just suddenly either stops playing the game or gets interested in raiding or starts playing another character, to where the characters that are left within the guild, maybe they make up this thing of, we're going to go and look for the missing chieftain, or we're going to
their blimp went down, Leila.
Right. They come together as a guild or come together as a group of role players to try and fill that hole and bring that gap closed so that they can continue forward with their characters and with their RP. And like I said, unfortunately, that's not something that you can always do, but it's definitely something that is possible. And it's just another way to expand and build on your role play that I think that in some of those cases, when those sorts of things happen, end up being the little bits and pieces that can really add, something to your character or something to the experience of your character going through these unexpected, overcoming these unexpected events.
Well said, Leila. Yeah, like Vlad, you remember when Benny had that horrible disease and he went off to Duskwood, never came back.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, about that.
Poor Benny.
Like Benny Hanna?
Yeah, that's what that was his last name, Benny Hanna.
I haven't seen one of those in forever.
Yeah, so but that's how that would go. I mean, you can work with it, and I think that's a great. That does separate, I think, some good role play from some bad. But you want to make sure you're doing well on both sides, especially if you say, yes, I really want to do this storyline, or you've worked out this elaborate thing with your role play partner. You want to make sure you stay committed to it. Just like if you're in a, like Vlad said earlier, if you're in a raid group and they expect you there Monday, Thursday, and Friday because you're part of the team, the same thing applies for us role players. You're still part of a team. You're doing a different aspect in the game, but you're still, you still have other people that are relying on you to play your part. And so if you've made a commitment, stick with your commitments. If it's something that you just like you've lost interest in, let the group know. Say, hey, I just can't do this anymore, and then they can figure out a way to write your character out of that storyline.
Right. And another thing, if you're, even if it's just like a one-on-one kind of role play, I don't know how exactly you could do. I guess you can use guild forums on their own websites. But let's say something does happen to you, like your computer or whatever. There are several other mediums you can still role play with. Like, yeah, you won't be in game, but you could still continue the story from it through another medium. Like Leila and I used Skype before. There's other mediums in which you can still propel
Tumblr.
the story. Tumblr.
Yeah, a lot of people use Tumblr, sir, for the roleplay. Yeah.
Really, they do. I did
yeah.
not know that.
Oh yeah.
See, I didn't know that. That's
Just be
that's a good
aware
way.
there are a lot of very frightening things on Tumblr as
That's
well. So.
Well, there are, but there's a pretty good roleplay community on Tumblr that, especially a lot of WoW community folks that take part in that there on the Tumblr as well. So.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking ERP stuff. Good wholesome stuff too.
Good wholesome roleplay.
It's not all edgy.
But...
All right, moving on, sir.
And again, this is another theme that it's probably going to show up a lot when we talk about the caliber of role players that you're dealing with, is separating OC and IC. Like, this is just, I cannot drive this point home enough of being able to just deal with character drama like as if you're watching a movie. Like, that's the best way I can describe it, because when you're watching a movie, you can feel angry for a character, but you're not angry when you walk out of the theater.
I don't know. It's Games of Thrones. I walk away angry all the time.
That reminds me. My dad watched. I don't know. This is an old movie. It's called Arlington Road, and that movie like legit made him pissed. Like, I was like, oh my god! Like, it just he was so upset at that ending. But I guess, he gets over it. But that's also kind of a good thing, because if it evokes emotion out of you, that means you care about it. And if you care about the role play, then you're bound to be having a good time.
Yeah.
Even though you're angry at the time, but you still feel so deeply for that character. Now, to make sure that you don't blend it in character, like your feelings in character, I suggest, like, if you're really angry, like my dad with Arlington Road, you kind of take a step back. Like, man, that was a good session, but god damn, I'm angry. Just give me some, like, I need a couple days or I need some time to just cool
Jeez,
off.
a couple days?
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, he's angry, Leila. He's mad.
That's how angry I am.
Benihana!
But using that, and you'll use the time that you push yourself away to kind of analyze and investigate what the character's kind of feeling. It might be around the same, like, your character might be angry. They might not be. They might be a coward, and they might be afraid of what's going on. And you're just...
Hey, how come you're looking at me when you said that, sir?
Because you are.
What?
Wow.
Wow.
Be nice to John. Be
Sorry,
nice, John.
what?
Your angry dad.
Yeah, wow.
Harrison Ford should have lived. I'm sorry, Dad. Sorry. No, sorry.
Okay. No, I think that's very true. A big example of this for me, again, I was in that long-term role play with Galahad, and there were several times when I would walk away from a session and think all night long on, man, if Galahad would have said this differently, how am I going to turn this around tomorrow? What am I going to do? What's his reaction going to be when I get back on? So I knew that this was a really good character for me, and I really loved every bit of it, the ups and downs. And so you do carry, and again, if the storyline really just kind of envelops you, you'll walk away feeling sometimes, oh man, you do have to take that time away, because you'll be thinking about it, man, dang it, oh, that was so awesome. So yeah, I certainly know where that's coming from.
And certainly there, although I think a lot of role players also do this, excuse me, a lot of role players will kind of make it like they'll take it as a challenge. And this is kind of where, like, the insidious drama starts, like one character gets this other one, like in the role play, or maybe they say a sly zinger or whatever. the next day that person will make it a point to like get back at them, which is like that's kind of like you're bleeding out of character in character, especially if it doesn't match what your character would do. But that's just that's like early warning signs, like kind of thing. If you and again, this is more of like a self-examination thing, because I don't think anyone will really call you out on it, because you can't. The other person can't point out the truth. They don't know your character as well as you do. So you really got to be honest with yourself on that. On that note.
I think at the same time too, with what you were saying there, in that people not calling you out on it. I think that if you are an individual that really starts to blur the line between IC and OOC, no matter what that means, whether that is, you're getting angry about things, or maybe you're taking a relationship RP like the wrong direction, OOC-ly, things like that, you won't find so many people that will call you out on it, but you will start to make people leery of even wanting to role play with you to begin with. You will see that they will start staying away from you, or they may, I'm not feeling like role playing today, and things like that. Or they will put distance between themselves and you if they feel that you are crossing that line and it's making them uncomfortable.
Yeah. And I think that a lot of that comes also with the romantic RP. Blurring that line between OOC and IC is very dangerous in that regard. Whereas, you got to make sure that the person that you're role playing with knows exactly where your boundaries are. And especially if you're married in real life, and this person is kind of blurring those lines, it can turn into a very uncomfortable situation very quickly.
Me.
Yeah. So make sure you're keeping that line clear. Yeah.
I have bore witness to like a homebreaker kind of incident happening. Like,
that's a whole nother topic, I think.
Yeah, we could have a whole show about about romantic RP.
Oh my
god, the horror sides. I mean, there's a lot of positive character relationships that take place and are truly to the benefit of the story and the characters and all that good stuff. Like, it can be done well and properly, but there is definitely a very dark side to all of that as well. That but in that same respect, it does need to be said that in thinking all of that, in what John was saying, it makes you a good role player too, to know what your boundaries are. Again, whether it has to do with relationship RP or not, you as a role player have a right to establish boundaries for yourself that have nothing to do with anybody else. What makes you comfortable is not to the opinion of anyone else. So there is nothing wrong with you as a good role player establishing boundaries and setting those sorts of things for yourself and sticking with them. And if other people can't respect that, that doesn't make you a bad role player. It doesn't, it doesn't say anything about you. It just means they're being disrespectful of the boundaries that, and again, part of that, as John was saying, is making sure that those boundaries are clear and needing to be respectful of other people's boundaries as well as they being respectful of your boundaries.
Because who raised them that way, Leila?
I know, they're so rude.
All right, well, before we hop into the next section, I think we need to go down into Thunderbluff a little bit. Cheppy is down there.
He's getting a little nervous up here.
Yeah, I
Come on, John.
See you, losers!
Oh, I want to see him. Did he die?
No.
Okay, he didn't die.
There you go, John.
And we are in Thunderbluff today and enjoying all the wonderful Thunderbluffian.
Sorry.
Wow.
Excuse me, sir.
Was that insensitive?
Yes, that was racist.
Who raised you that way?
Good Lord. Okay. Where's Cheppy? Where's she at, Leila? She's walking around here
she
somewhere.
walks around. Oh, she's over here behind the Bluff Watcher. Oh, she's got a couple Bluff Watchers with her right now.
Cheppy.
She's well guarded.
You go, girl. Oh yeah, she's a little popular. So
Yeah. Nope. They've just abandoned her. We've got to pick up the mantle of protection of Cheppy.
But I've always liked Thunderbluff. Thunderbluff's a very nice place. There's lots of great places to roleplay here.
I know that's should be a topic we talk about sometime.
Oh,
in
we
the future.
definitely will. We'll be going to different places, showing you different spots, some maybe out of the way spots people might not know about. They can go play in.
We have fun. LTS is asking what is IC and OOC? Well, OC, but it's OOC. IC is when you're in character, when you're doing things as your character would do them or as your character would say them. And OOC stands for out of character, which is what you as a player, if you need to, again, establishing boundaries, maybe you need to log off for the night or relaying information in an out of character context.
Yeah, it's like when Vlad says, I have to poop, and then he goes to poop, but his character's still there, so his character's not pooping.
Maybe his character is doing it, and we're just not aware.
Wow. Well, that is a roleplay topic, actually. Places
Pooping?
to poop in
Oh my
Warcraft
god.
Because, you have all the plumbing and stuff. There's a sewer system, but do Tauren just poop off the side of Thunderbluff here? Where do they poop?
Maybe we do.
How else is it so green here? I mean,
Well,
We make our cow pies with them.
Wow.
do you go cow chipping? Like you just throw? Oh god.
Yeah,
Anyway,
okay.
next one.
Wow, we got off
You
top.
guys are
Caca,
rude.
caca, caca.
Being cooperative would be our next topic. Definitely, you want to. It kind of goes along with being committed. You kind of want to be a good sport. You got to be willing to talk to people, get along with people, be not a dick. That's basically kind of it.
Wow.
And also,
Our apologies if your character is named Richard.
Yeah, you can be Dick then, but
Yeah.
not a Dick.
and oh god, this is going off the trail, off the rails. Being cooperative.
They're still recovering.
I can't.
But no, you do have to be a good sport and be willing to talk to people and go along with role play sometimes wherever it goes, within reasons, obviously.
Right. Yeah. You don't have to like go into the rape den or anything like that. Like
Wow.
Yeah. It's,
The board,
what?
sir. That goes dark
sorry.
very fast. Caca.
But another thing I wanted to get at was, let's say things don't go the way they should, or we're kind of referencing that again when we're being committed. Good role players are flexible in how they will approach role play. Let's say you role play a really quiet character, or the dark and brooding type that sits in the corner. Well,
Like Batman.
like
You
Batman.
got your Batman voice.
And a good role player will know that's what their character's like, but they still want to role play and they still need to interact with people. So they'll find a way to initiate that interaction, whether it be like some others, like they create an NPC in the scene, and they kind of draw the other person to this, to the role player, or they'll be very straight up and just whisper like, "Hey, find you interesting. Let's do some role play. If you're, my character's not very interactive. Could you make this happen?" And the not so good role player will just expect people to approach them, and they'll just sit there. Now, that's not always the case. Sometimes people are just people watching, but still, you'll generally be thought of as one of those role players that expects role play to come to you when you really should chase after it.
Exactly, and I think being cooperative really applies for not only just one-on-one with someone, but being in a guild, especially say your guild leader wants the guild to do this part and wants to move the guild to Hillsbrad. But you really like South Shore. You like the little blob guys, and you want to move up to Hearth. They want to move up to Hearthglen, but you can try to work that into your role play. But ultimately, you still want to cooperate with where the guild's going. You don't want to always be that person that's like, I don't. Why can't it be about me? So.
Or they'll simply just not. Like they'll just be in the guild, but they're not participating at all, or
Because I think, especially if you're talking in the context of a guild or a group RP, you're only hurting yourself by doing that. because eventually either the guild's just going to do it without you and you're going to miss out because of that, or it's going to be a situation where they realize that you're that type of individual and they will not include you. Like, you will kind of be left on the outsides where apparently you want to be. They just don't want to. I mean, because if you think about it, like if you're a dark, brooding character that's sitting in the corner of a room, if you thought about that in a real life context, you're probably not going to approach that person. That person is probably going to make you feel kind of creepy.
Right.
And so a lot of characters will actually feel that way. And, you know, they may not approach your character. That isn't to say that you can't be dark and brooding and still put out emotes that fish for RP, or what they call fishing for RP, in terms of giving somebody something that if they were paying attention, they could pick up on it. Oh, maybe your character, you know, dropped something on the floor, or, you know, something like that, that actually invites someone to engage you in some way, despite whether or not your character may be the dark and brooding type. You can still, as the player, give the impression to other players that you as an individual are welcoming role play. It just happens to be that your character is, you know, the dark and brooding type. But you really do have to be careful with that in terms of not, you know, being able to understand that, you know, that's not going to be the type of RP for everybody, and that's
Right.
okay.
Yeah.
Everybody, you know, has their own thing. And just because, you know, nobody's picking up on your dark and brooding RP, it doesn't necessarily mean that, you know, your RP is bad or your character is bad. Just, it might, that's just not for everybody.
It's
And
like
you've got to,
Yeah, Leila, it's like when Vlad chopped off Fluffy's arm and said, "Oh, you dropped something," and handed it back to me. I was like, But no, that's that's exactly right. And I think, again, not everybody's role play is going to be for everyone, and you have to know that going in. But you certainly, if you can role play it well enough, it's going to make for a more exciting role play environment. So not everybody's playing the superhero, and not everybody's playing the supervillain. There's a lot of in betweens, and I think that's what makes role play exciting.
Right. That kind of leans into our next topic, which is understanding the kind of theme that you like to roleplay, understanding what kind of roleplay you want to do. And good role players understand that the kind of characters that they'll need to make for those certain scenes. For example, you know, a good role player is not going to make Gregor the Barbarian, and he's going to be a noir detective in this, unless he's being unless it's a comedy kind of piece. But more than likely, you need to understand what you like and what you have fun with, and you have to know your limits.
Yeah, exactly. If you're a beginning role player, you probably don't want to start off with something ultra complex and really, really deep. You may want to start a little lighter. But you never know. If someone really puts a lot of effort and work into their character, and they find that it doesn't work out, you might have to adjust it a little. But I think that's all a growing process into making you a really good role player. Because again, folks, remember, if you're brand new, no one starts off as the most eloquent, the best role player out there. It takes a little time to learn. Number one, what you like. It takes a little bit of time to learn what your character's about. Again, unless you spent, weeks on weeks on, full backstory and you've really got every angle covered, you think, and then you run into something where it really makes you question your whole role play story. That could be a little demoralizing. So remember, going in, especially as a brand new role player, you're not going to know everything. You're not going to be, invited to every role play. It's gonna take a little while to learn and get your foot in the door, as it were.
And even if, like, let's say you're an experienced role player and things are kind of slowing down the themes that you like to role play are kind of meh nowadays. Try something different. Try something new. Like try out a comedy kind of role play. Make a comedic character. I mean, that's like the only way I can roleplay undead is like in a kind of comedy setting. Otherwise, I generally don't like roleplaying undead like characters.
They're the best, sir.
No, they're not. Not for me. They're not for me.
See, and that's what we're talking about.
I
Understand
think
the
that
things you like.
there are very few, I would imagine, there are very few role players that can role play anything and role play anything well.
Right.
By far, the majority are individuals that they're the best role play that they do is based upon role play that they thoroughly enjoy, whether it's a race that you thoroughly enjoy, whether it's a story theme that you thoroughly enjoy. Those are going to be where you do your best role play, is when you are thoroughly and genuinely interested either in the race, in the story, in the lore, and whatever it is about that character and that character story, that that's where your best role play is going to be. And there's nothing to say that there's obviously nothing wrong with trying out new things and trying out different styles of RP or trying out different themes. There's certainly nothing wrong with just sticking with what you enjoy either. There's nothing that says that you have to go and try all of these different types of RP or these different types of characters or roles or races. Because you're going to perform your best when you are thoroughly interested in what's going on, whether it's the story or your character. That's where you're going to perform the best.
Now, Vlad, can you think of someone when you were first starting roleplay, and in WoW or in any other game that you've roleplayed in, where they really impressed you with their roleplay?
Oh, yeah. My gurus. I actually have roleplay gurus that taught me everything I know about roleplay, and it was so refreshing because she played a
much like that drink Leila's drinking.
Yeah, it's refreshing, Dr.
I got it for the next hour, John.
Where was I? She was played a human paladin. Rather generic, but it was. She definitely was a person.
Water, John.
She definitely was a person. Like, the character was a person, and I tried to emulate that. Like I used that person or that character to kind of build up my own role play. It's kind of like an old saying, like, you're never going to learn anything if you're around people or if you're the smartest man in the room, kind of thing. You want to surround yourself with role players that you feel are superior to you, and then you want to emulate their methods. And that way, that can improve your style, or give you some techniques, or some good ideas.
Yeah.
The way I approach characters is now I learned from my guru.
All right. Yeah. Excellent.
And another thing I learned from my guru is related to the next topic, which is.
Well, let me share mine real quick, sir.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Wow, the story isn't just about you, Vlad.
Yeah, gosh, Vlad.
The story's best when you involve others.
Yeah, hello.
You're so rude. Raise
Good
John.
Lord. But for me, when I first started in role-playing, especially in WoW, was a player that played a gnome warrior named Tim Tank. Now, Tim Tank was not your typical gnome warrior. He was the angriest gnome warrior I've ever met, and still to this day, I think about on his character, and it was he played that character to a T, and it was so awesome to role play with him because you knew as a member of the guild that we were in, the Celestial Templars, that if you messed up, you were going to have to face Tin Tank, and Tin Tank was an angry gnome, and he did it wonderfully. It was so anti-gnome. But he just really played the part well, and really, like you said, helped take some of my other characters and make them better, because I learned a little bit from what he did, and not everything has to be cookie cutter, and so I really learned a lot from that as well.
Right. What about you, Leila?
Yeah, Leila.
Since we're taking turns.
Yeah, Leila.
I would think that over the years, the individuals that stand out to me are individuals that will genuinely play the character as the character. And what I mean by that is individuals that are not afraid to be specifically the race that they have chosen to play. Unfortunately, over my years, I've seen far too many orcs who were acting as if they were Thrall. Not to say that they were trying to be Thrall, but they don't understand that Thrall was raised by humans and is not exactly the world's pinnacle of orc representation in that fashion. Yes, hashtag Team Garrosh. But individuals who will play an orc and are not afraid to be an orc and to have the mindset and the short temper perhaps of an orc, not to say that all orcs have a short temper, but traits like that would be of genuine reflection of the race that they are. The Tauren, for example, or even, in humans, as far as, the night elves and things like that you're not just playing those races as, you're not just being an orc as a green-skinned human. You're not just being a Tauren as a human with fur. You're not just being a purple-skinned human if you're playing a night elf. But characters and individuals that have stood out to me over the years are those that can genuinely get into the mindset of what those races would be, not only in terms of, their personalities and whatnot as they existed as that character, but elements of their history and elements of the lore of those races that would weigh heavily on, facts of life for those characters and that sort of thing. So yeah, you're welcome, John. I don't want to necessarily single out any, one individual over, the course of my years RPing, but well, as you do. But yeah, the characters that do stand out in my head all, are really well done in terms of a lot of things that we've been talking about thus far. Really playing the character for the character, keeping IC and OOC separate, and all of those perfect elements really help make the character stand the test of time in terms of, other people that you interact with that make your character memorable to them. And there's Steve again.
Hi, Steve.
Steve has been my roleplay partner since before Wrath of the Lich King.
No, Steve.
Yes. Since before Wrath of the Lich King, I have had Steve in my corner.
All right, Vlad, moving on.
Right. This is all pretty good stuff, considering that our next topic is treating your character as an individual. I know that kind of sounds kind of crazy, but...
What?
Oh my god!
What?
Yes, treat them as individuals. Talk to your characters. Flesh them out, so completely that you understand what makes them tick. Undoubtedly, there's going to be portions of yourself in the character, but a good role player will take those elements within themselves and develop them according to the other characteristics of their characters. In other words, identify the parts of you in your character, and then make them grow in the way you want them to. And eventually, they'll produce. What the hell was that?
What was that? That was wow. Okay. Okay. I got this guy over here, Cloud Hoof.
Essentially, they'll grow into their own person when you understand what elements of yourself are in there, and the elements in which what makes up their character, as of like their race, their background, their history, whatever, what have you. And also just role-playing them. That will also help you kind of make them... Oh, there it is again!
Hey, he leveled. Yay!
Congratulations!
Congrats! Yay!
He leveled.
That's Ernesto?
Essentially, that's what it comes down to.
That's Ernesto.
That does not say Ernesto,
It looks
John.
like Ernesto from here. What is it? What's his name, Leila?
Trisau?
I'm going with Ernesto. That's better.
Ernesto better. Ernesto the orc sounds legit.
Yeah. But no, that's
He is his own character.
I think that's very true, Vlad. If you can kind of think as your character would think in each situation, that's really going to help you out with your role play. And take our D&D adventure with Sir Luke. His love of the light and he would offer up prayers at certain situations. And I think, sticking with that theme and trying to think of how Luke would react and to each and every scenario that we found ourselves in, I think I really had a fun with that, because it kind of took me out of, kind of the... I was almost trying to make a parody of the ultimate good guy, but it kind of morphed into this different, very religious type paladin, and I really enjoyed that part.
Imagine that.
Yeah, and thinking how, how he would worship the light in each and every situation he found himself in, and I had some pretty epic prayers that he would do.
While grouped up with a tiefling warlock.
Yeah, and how he would react to that. So, but I think that ultimately, what makes a bad role player versus a good role player is, again, taking and kind of putting themselves into that character and making that character come alive in the meta in which they find themselves in, and being able to do that, and again, make that world a living, breathing place for that character. And I think a good role player can do that really, really well.
Right. They can also, get the feeling of interaction, I think, and also that helps bring life into the character. Like, whenever you emo, there is a rhythm or a kind of drum beat that you follow. A good role player will know the difference, or when a situation calls for multiple paragraphs to be, thoroughly thought out and, well written, or, simple one-word response will do, kind of thing.
Well, you do try to if you're grouped with a multi-paragraph or group, do try to, at least a couple sentences. They get really upset if you just do a one-word reply on some situation.
Well, the thing is, I think I don't subscribe to the whole multi-paragraph, and I don't subscribe to the what's it called, the what's the word, short but sweet kind of role playing. I think whatever the mood calls for. If detail is required, then you need to be detailed. If not, if you're just having dialogue, I think one-word responses or, just saying stuff in /say, I think that's totally appropriate. I don't think that I think it's unfair for a role-playing guild to say you must type 3 paragraphs every post.
I think it
or
goes,
else get
right.
out.
You're going to turn into Richard Knack detailing every little thing that may or may not need to be detailed.
Again,
Stephen King.
I think it goes back to knowing the group that you're role-playing with too, though. So, I mean, if you're not participating in the way they'd like you to participate, then find another group that you're willing to do that with. But I see where you're coming from there too. Not every situation demands a 3-paragraph answer to everything, and so knowing the group that you're role playing with, that's going to be all right. I have a hard time keeping up with those folks as well, and because they're very descriptive. The multi-paragrapher is very descriptive, and sometimes it's very hard to keep up with that. Xanilus says it's also dependent on the character in question. Some people aren't just people on many words, and that can vary with your character as well. Knowing your character and mood is important, in my opinion. I agree that it's unfair to force people into these kind of situations.
Yep, you hit it spot on there, Xanilith, or Xanleth. Whatever.
We're really good at reading names, as you could tell
the
by
best.
Ernesto. Yeah,
I'm the best.
Ernesto the orc. Yeah.
The next part I'm terrible at reading out loud.
I will read them all.
You'll
Oh,
read
good.
them all?
Yes,
Oh,
and
thank
then
God.
you and John we will talk amongst ourselves.
Okay. Just to fill you in, guys, we're talking about the community responses that you guys...
Are we to that already?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we are. That's
Oh,
where we're
wow.
Wow,
at.
Layla, are you
All
not
right.
following the notes, Layla?
We zung right through those.
Listen, John, I'm a free spirit.
Dance my monkey dance. Okay.
I am not your monkey.
So we put.
All right, so
go ahead, Layla.
I was just going to say, yes, I posted up a prompt on the Wormrest Accord server forums to see what the community thought in terms of things such as what makes a good role player, what they're interested in or what they're looking for in terms of a long-term RP partner, or any suggestions and tips that they may give to individuals who are just starting out in RP and are wanting to improve upon their roleplay ability. So we've got quite a number of responses here. When this VOD goes up on YouTube, or even for the links on Twitter later tonight, I will provide a link to this post that I put up on the server forums, because we are certainly not going to cover every single word that everyone responded to in the prompt. Unfortunately, I just don't think time allows for it. And certainly we don't want to be repeating everything that we've discussed up to this point. But there are so many great responses, and we definitely appreciate everybody that took the time to respond to us. And I definitely want to make that link available to anybody that's interested in reading the full and all of the responses that we were given in that forum post, including some of the bad ones. Entertain yourselves with that.
Bad ones on the forums? No.
Yeah.
They didn't answer the question actually, but yeah, whatever.
We don't feed the trolls.
Yeah, okay.
It's not gonna. Yeah.
You know
But
who
we
you
d-
are.
Yeah.
I thought so.
Who raised you that way?
All right, so we're going to take a few of them that we've selected out here that have, I think, generally, good points to be made, and then we can, discuss them a little bit. Some of these things are things that we've already covered that perhaps maybe they've just worded it a little bit differently, so we may not have too much to add to it. But we're going to start with Cole Payne, who says that backstory is great, but don't let it control your character. Let it fuel your character. I've noticed a lot of new RPers focus entirely too much on their backstory. They write pages and pages, which is fine on its own. If you want to expand your character in that way, you are more than free to do so. The pitfall a lot fall into, though, is that's it. That's where it ends. They feel like they've put so much into their character's backstory that they've already written a character arc. All that strife and growth that you could have RP'd out just went into a backstory only a fraction of people are going to read.
Yes.
Yeah, because I don't know if I've actually ever sat there and read the 3 pages that someone's written on their back history.
Yeah, that's why I keep my descriptions on like my profiles 3 paragraphs at most, because most people are not going to read any more than that.
Then you got to scroll down to the X-rated stuff.
And I even avoid.
He is just convinced that you are flagged mature.
Oh my god. I even
in your dreams, John.
I know.
I even avoid like story. Like I don't show backstory at all, because for one, your character, I guess it's really nice for the role player to read that kind of stuff, or for the other role players to read that, but they're not gonna, and your character's not gonna know my character's backstory at first unless he tells you, and I think it's a waste of space, in my opinion. Hey, I'm not gonna knock anyone else that puts their full backstory on there, but that's just the way I do it. For that exact reason, not a lot of people are gonna read it.
Moving on, we have Vinterson, who has said, a good role player understands that it's okay to let someone else have the limelight, a day in the sun, whatever you want to call it. In other words, don't make every story and scene revolve around your character. Sometimes it's your turn to be the star of the show, and sometimes it's someone else's turn.
Yeah, Vlad.
Unless you're role-playing with Vlad, and then it's always the Vlad show.
It's the Vlad show.
Or you're with John, and John wants to make it the Vlad show.
No, we kid. We're kidding.
Yeah.
But I think that's very true. Yep.
I totally agree. And that's all I have to say.
Yep. Good job, Vinderson.
And that's all I got to say about that.
I love this next one, Leila.
Perhaps I'm going to butcher this name, and I'm so sorry, but I'm going to go with Ursula. Maybe something like that. I'm so sorry. But she says, do not write your characters. Discover your characters. Begin with the minimum your character needs to exist in a meaningful way, and then fill out the rest as you go.
I love that. Don't write your characters, discover your characters. That's perfect.
That should be on a shirt somewhere.
Yep.
Yeah. She had
Okay.
some other good stuff to say too.
Oh, she had an amazing post with some serious length to it. She put a lot of thought, and we appreciate that. But again, it's like one of those where we,
Oh my god, she answered all of our questions very thoroughly, and it's wonderful.
per Vinterson's response, we did not want to turn it into the Ursula show, or however.
Right.
I'm sorry, I can't. Your name is just too much.
It could just be Ursula.
It could be. I'm probably making it too We'll just go with Ursula from now on. Tentacles. So next we have Corithian. Is that how's that how you call
Yeah,
it?
Corinthian leather. Yes.
Corithian.
Yeah, Corithian.
If I had to say what makes a good role player, it would be possessing the ability to have genuine fun with it while also respecting the choices of other players.
Wow, well done.
Yeah. That's really what roleplay is all about. You want to have fun. Like, you can't. If you're not having fun, then what the hell are you doing? Like,
Yeah,
I just
go do battlegrounds or something. Yeah.
yeah, like it's as simple as that.
We have Dayron, who's speaking on advice for beginners, saying, keep it simple. Who, what, where, and why. Keep it all simple. You're a Blood Elf Paladin, then read on Blood Elf Paladins in lore. Don't try to be special in your background uniqueness. It will all come through in the interactions that you have.
That is so true, because yeah, that's the best way to start off. Like, again, I like to use like the whole marble slate kind of analogy. That's how you start off with role playing a new character, and each experience and each flaw that you discover kind of chips away, and it reveals the real character they are underneath, and it kind of again that helps you discover the individual that's there.
See, Vlad character might act like he hates me, but underneath that exterior,
No, I really do hate you.
no, underneath it all,
Like, I just
he
want
wants
to
hug
pummel you
me
into
and-
green goo
and
then feed you to the pigs.
he says that, but he really loves me. Now, underneath that hard exterior is a oh God.
Oh my.
Okay. Next, Leila, quick.
Staying on advice for beginners, we have Pants, who said if they're starting new in terms of the lore world, I would say that start with an easy blank slate type character, one that isn't ingrained too deeply in established lore. Learn of lore through roleplay, research, and character progression. Create someone with flaws so that they can grow. No one wants to be all powerful because every good story needs a struggle.
See, that's like when I roleplay in different mediums, like Warcraft, I know like the back of my hand, almost like niche things I don't know. But anyway, I can make almost any character. But like if I'm entering a different kind of universe, I generally make like a warrior-like character or a character that is simple in that regard. Not that they are like simple in mind, but every universe is gonna have that rough and tumble, just
Zug zug.
zug kind of guy. So it's that's super easy to get in there, and you can experience the lore for yourself. And then
Here.
Here.
Something
Love that
something
name, Pants.
very simply from Aelfred says, to me, RP is about collaboration.
Oh, yeah, that kind of goes back to who was that other person that said that? I don't remember their name. I'm sorry. But it kind of just goes back to having fun with people. It's getting together. It's kind of like a poker night, or it's kind of like going out to watch a movie or whatever.
There's a difference.
It's a multiplayer game.
There's a difference between role playing and writing a story.
Yeah.
Writing.
Yep. Exactly.
If you are not interacting with other people and everyone contributing different thoughts and ideas and all that good stuff, then you are writing a story.
That's well said, Leila.
We have Inaki.
Okay. Hey, thanks, John.
Caw.
Okay.
Yep.
A good role player is someone playing out a character they love, doing a plot they're interested in with a person they like that likes them back. I thought that was cute. Wow, that's all I get from that. Like, jeez.
Well, I mean, what if they don't like them back, Leila? What happens then?
Well, John, then you need to accept that Vlad isn't interested you in that way, and you probably
Wow.
should best be moving on with your role play.
I mean, okay. Well said.
Move on.
Moving on.
We have Gillygix. Says someone who has the ability to stand firm, who can roll with the punches and adjust on the fly, who will follow the lore, and who is willing to break or expand it. Above all else, is wise enough to know when and where to do any of the above for the betterment of the scene and group. And
Wow.
I will say that this is something that generally, I will say, I do not agree with breaking the lore or stepping outside of continuity, because those sorts of things really are a pinnacle of trying to keep everybody on the same page and everybody pulling from the same source in terms of a lot of things. But I can definitely understand what's being said here in terms of sometimes you just have to do that if it means that something better is going to come out of it. If you have the potential to, really expand upon something or really come up with a great story idea that may or may not, really fit into the lines of the lore, or it falls into the gray area where there's just not enough resources to say yes or no that this is even possible. But sometimes the greatest role play comes from those sorts of moments, because that's when people, they can be thoroughly invested in it. And, if that means that, you can really get people interested and get people enjoying the role play, having fun with it, and really wanting to see more and continue on, that's an element of, you need to be able to not be so rigid in those sorts of things.
Yeah, see, Vlad, so, we could have a thing.
What?
Yeah, it might break lore, and, hey.
I'll break you.
Wow!
Wow, okay. But no,
So
I think, honestly, that I think you hit it right on the head there, Leila. There might be one or two instances where maybe there is a gray area in the lore, and you've got a great idea that you think is really going to make that storyline continue on even better. And I think if you bring it to the group and you really make a great case for it, I don't see why you can't expand either on the lore or maybe break it a little.
I usually err on the side of caution when it comes to gray area lore, but generally, yeah, I agree. If the people you're around agree with it, I don't see a reason why you shouldn't try to expand upon that or exploit that area in the story.
All right.
Next up, we have Cass Keyhall, who says, I just want people to treat their characters seriously and think of them as actual individuals. Not gritty realism or 100% seriousness, but just a respect for the character. She says her character's backstory is full of pain, but she doesn't talk about it. It's just something that influences her decisions and gives her quirks.
Right. I like this person. I like the role player that will have the tragic backstory, but they don't express it. Like, normal people with tragic upbringings. Or a lot of people don't use. Oh, actually, I should probably back up on that, because there are some people that do use their home life as an excuse to do bad things. But in any case, I like that kind of role player because it leaves something to discover when you're interacting with them. If that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm. Knowing certain things about a character as a player, as OOCly, can really help you in terms of your character picking up on certain cues. Like she's talking about these quirks that she may have. If you're really paying attention to that and your character's really paying attention, those in and of itself lead to more role play. Because rather than just simply reading that in a backstory or having that character just tell you everything up front, just completely spill their guts out to you, once that's happened, then it's done. There's no more. Whoa.
What? I just say that's kind of what it is.
Wow.
Well, what?
That escalated quickly.
Man.
It just...
Okay. Caca.
Oh, okay.
Prudes.
So Xandre had a number of points that I've just kind of bulleted here because, again, it was another really great post that we really appreciate the time that he put into it. And he says, a good role player understands the difference between private role play where they can do whatever they want and public role play where going overboard is discourteous. They also recognize that role play is collaborative, not competitive. They're focused on creating fun for us and not just for themselves. They understand that the guards exist and that character actions yield fair in-character consequences, but also understand that people are human and make mistakes and that retconning is a thing. They also balance lore and fun. And I definitely have to say that I've had some personal experience with individuals that we may be in the middle of a city and they have attempted to attack my character. You have to understand that guards are a thing. Now, if you wanted to be in some gritty back alley, that's most certainly plausible, but you have to consider those sorts of elements. If, we're here in Thunder Bluff, the bluff watchers are walking around all over the place. You're probably not just going to attack someone's character here in the open market. Otherwise, you're going to have in-character consequences of that, which unfortunately, because they're NPCs, they're not going to respond to that. But you have to be willing to accept that that's something that, as far as the role play, wouldn't be allowed to just happen. Some individual in that RP is probably going to have to step in and say, like, okay, you've been apprehended by a bluff watcher or some such like that. But you have to be open to those sorts of in-character consequences to what your character's actions would be, especially based on, location and things that would be around you.
Yeah, like Goomba here.
Yeah, I was about to say, it's
just
lore breaking, or it's just immersion breaking for someone like, level 1 noob to run around in your role play and just kind of creep.
Yeah.
But it's just as immersion breaking if you don't recognize those elements that are around you.
Right.
It kind of, it's one of those catch-22 situations, I suppose.
All right. Well said, Leila. Steve.
There's Steve. And I think that, Xandre did make several good points there. Obviously, I think last week we discussed the things that, while you are free to do whatever if you want to be the sparkly vampire dragon in your own private personal RP that you have with friends or your guild, that's, there's no problems with that whatsoever, but you're probably not going to be able to pull off that sparkly vampire dragging walking down the streets of Orgrimmar because the general community is not going to accept that, and you're probably going to catch a lot of heat for that. But again, that's about being courteous to the general population in that, if, everybody is on one line of continuity. Unfortunately, if you're the one that's stepping offside that, you're the one that has to be respectful of that, not all of the community needing to be respectful to you.
All right.
Right.
And I do really like the focus is on creating fun for us and not just for himself. I think that that's really great.
Good point.
When you're role playing with other people, you definitely, if the person you're role playing with isn't having any fun, what's the point of that? Either they're going to not want to role play with you anymore and, you're going to lose out in the end anyway. Or, why would you not want the other person or persons that you're role playing with to be enjoying the story just as much as you are?
Exactly, Leila. Well said.
On the topic of a good role player, Parker says a good role player can react to unpredictable situations in a manner that is consistent to their character, even if it's something entirely unexpected, which I think is really great. If something unexpected happens, you have to be able to take a minute to process, what would your character do in this situation? How would your character respond? Even if it's not how you, OOCly, would respond. If you didn't see, maybe somebody's character dies suddenly, someone in your guild, a long-term role player, their character dies, you OOCly may be like completely taken aback by, oh my god, I can't believe that happened, or so. But how would your character respond to that? Did they
Oh my
see
god,
it
I can't believe that happened.
would they immediately accuse someone of something? You really have to get inside your character
Yeah, Vlad.
during those unexpected times and respond as your character would respond, rather than how you just want to respond.
Yeah.
What are you looking at me for?
Well, because you were the last one with Benihana.
I told you several times I cut his head off.
Uh-huh.
You're just in a state of complete denial about it.
Yeah. Not true, Leila. He didn't do that. He loved Benihana.
You guys are so weird.
Hey.
You just don't get us, okay?
Yeah.
Am I really spending my Saturday nights with you guys?
Wow. Leila, you need to take a listen to this episode from the beginning.
I love you, John.
Okay.
I love spending my Saturdays with you, John.
No, I think that's exactly true. And again, it all goes back to the OOC and IC, and I think, again, also putting thought into exactly what would your character do in this situation. Sometimes it is going to come at you very quickly, and you're not going to have a time to sit there and write something out. And so if you really know your character well, you'll be able to just, click right along with it. And I think that when you're doing that, it feels so good, and it's so exciting, and it's really a good time when you're able to do that.
See, that's another thing. I don't understand the expectations of the role players. They're like, oh my god, I'm waiting like 5 minutes for this person to respond, kind of thing. What if they're just getting, like, they could be a good role player, but they're just getting used to their character. Maybe they're taking the extra minute or two to think about, okay, well, how would he say this, or how would he react to this? I even do that. Like, I don't fully know a character when I first make him. Probably Ragnosh here, I haven't roleplayed with him yet, but when I start, it's probably going to take me a while to make a post or two, because I want to get his character right on. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I would rather wait 5 minutes for someone to post something that is truthful and well thought out for their character as a response, than someone that just posts something immediately without putting any thought or any character into it. Not to say that there aren't people that are just, they know their character so well that they can't just rattle off these posts for their characters. That's great. But especially in terms of somebody that's just starting out, if it takes you, a few extra minutes to sit and think, okay, how would my character respond? If that's what you need to do, then hopefully the people that you're role-playing with are respectful and understanding of that, and they allow you that time to get to know your character. And it's something that, perhaps down the road, once you've been role-playing with your character on a regular basis, it will be something that will, hopefully get easier for you to do and may not feel so overwhelming for you.
I like
you're
this.
Here.
You're here. I like this next bit too that they say.
Yes, Parker included on a bit of a slight unrelated note. I think that it's good to try and compliment people. I like X detail about your character, or your writing style is really nice, etc. I find myself doing it on occasion, but even I think I falter when it comes to this trait. It's good to encourage others who are around you if you think that they're doing well.
Yep.
And I try and do this myself, even if it comes down to, even if I just like somebody's transmog, I'll whisper them and say, hey, I like your transmog, or, I might look over their character profile and say, I really like, either I like your character profile as a whole, or maybe I like certain, if certain things really stood out to me, I would try and, make a point of saying, hey, that's really awesome that you've put that much into your character. Or especially things that stand out to me is when people have done something really unique with their character that still fits within, the lore and the race that they are, and all of that fits and flows really well together, but they have just come up with something really unique or something that you don't really see very often. I always like to encourage those things.
I always like when people whisper me, like, nice mog, bro. And I'm like, oh. I'm like,
and then they steal it.
And then they, oh my god. I've had people steal my mog. This very mog that you see right now, I bet like 100 or other orcs are going to take it now. but literally someone,
Wow.
I
mean,
a
it's
day
all
or
right.
two after I made.
You know, someone's out there copying John's right now.
Yeah. Mine, mine's very special.
But also, the same thing goes for roleplay. What's it called? Profiles and stuff. I think it's generally to put out good vibes. Generally good to put out those kind of vibes to people. I don't want to go to this place, but sometimes I just have to. I think a lot of people get kind of creeped out by it too. Like they think that I like your RP profile.
Wow.
Like,
Wow.
Wow. Good lord.
I think that's people get like that
P.O. Box Goldshire.
Yeah, I know, and it's you probably get like no responses or anything like that, but it's good just to kind of throw that out there to people.
Well, I think
Sencha says that she likes to compliment people's art that they have in their profile, and in turn she gets an ego boost when someone compliments her art, which Sencha has wonderful art.
She does.
Hold on 1 second, guys.
John's going to check out Sencha's art.
Oh, Dre has a good question here. Is it frowned upon to RP a noble? I don't suppose it is. I wouldn't imagine so. I suppose it comes down to what society in which they are a noble. Like, if they're a blood elf noble, I would say yes, because just generally there aren't that many blood elves. Oh my god, there's a Tauren.
Wow.
So I'm just saying this. You guys scare me. But anyway, but yeah, generally it comes down to that whole societal kind of apparently this person's gonna steal my track as well.
What? Wow. Henrika.
Benihana?
It is. He's back. But no, I always like to compliment, especially if I've had a good RP session with someone, and let them know that, man, I really enjoyed it.
John, we weren't talking about that anymore.
Yeah, we were addressing Dre's question if it's okay to roleplay a noble.
Oh.
And I think it's generally all right as long as it's kind of confined into a guild. Like walking around and randoming as a noble, I think you're not going to get a lot of respect as a noble should. Because I don't know what it is, but a lot of role players kind of want to buck the system kind of thing. I don't care that you're a noble, blah blah blah. Whereas most people wouldn't do that. If a judge walked into, say, a bar or something like that, people aren't gonna mess with him like that.
I think that I don't think it's frowned upon if you are a noble, if you will take into consideration that still does not mean you're the greatest ever. Nobles still have faults and quirks, and they are not the end-all be-all of their society. There are plenty of nobles that are not held in high esteem. There are plenty of nobles that maybe their families are on the outs. So there's a certain amount of context that needs to be considered, that if you're going to role play a noble, that you can't necessarily it just doesn't mean that you're the greatest. I've definitely come across many noble characters that are role played very well, in terms of not taking these sorts of things for granted. They're not trying to be better than everybody else. They're just working on their own certain story arc that they enjoy, and I don't think that there's anything wrong with that. But if you're role-playing a noble to simply be better than everybody else, and that's the basis of your role-play, you'd probably best be prepared for a lot of people to not take too kindly to that and probably ostracize you as a result. And that is not their fault. They're not going to want to roleplay with the snooty, stuck-up, I'm better than you noble, because odds are, again, you look at it in more of a real life context, that generally the nobles aren't going to slum it down in the tavern unless they have some backhanded reason to be doing so, or if they are, you wouldn't know that they were a noble, that they would either, you know, wear plain clothes, or they wouldn't be going around going, I'm Lord so-and-so, and I have them throwing their money all over the place. Those sorts of things. So, you know, again, you know, I think there are definitely some great ways to play a noble character, but you certainly have to consider the context in which you're role-playing one, and as well as what kind of response that you're really wanting from people.
I think what's great about this is Sencha says she RPs a granny who hits on handsome young men. That's I love that.
That's very endearing, Sencha.
Yes, that's awesome. Okay, so
Also, I would say that just, I'm sorry, John, but just because Dre added on, he says, I only asked because my first character was a prince from another world, and I was told that that was not a good idea to be one. Yeah, I'd probably have to agree with that. If you are a prince from another world in the context of World of Warcraft, probably not going to go over very well. But again, if that's some, you know, if you found yourself a group that wanted to RP characters from another world and that's what you guys were into, you know, have at it. That's great. But if you're talking about terms of general open community RP, it's probably not going to fly.
Yep.
all right, we have 2 more to go.
One more. Oh no, it's 2.
Yep, it's 2. All right, so we have Vorgar, who says, knowing your character isn't immortal. Put yourself in your character's shoes for a moment. Are you going to pick a fight with somebody who's in a bar where weapons are openly displayed? Are you willing to rush into a horde of people that want to kill you? If there's a giant scorpion in your way, wouldn't that be a huge freaking threat? I think levels need to be completely ignored in World of Warcraft role-playing. A Kodo is a giant mass of muscle and weight. It should be a severe threat for a group of hunters, let alone a solo one. I'm just using that as an example. I roll my eyes when I hear characters saying they could slaughter X group of enemies with ease. You put a novice in full plate, and even they can be a challenge. A Stormwind foot soldier is armed quite well.
You know, I like some of this, but again, I think it just falls back to preference and how you want to role play and kind of the meta that you want to involve your character in. I know a lot of guilds that utilize level as, you know, how powerful they are versus, you know, someone that, say, is a novice in full plate. I think it just goes back to, again, what's your role play style and knowing the people that you're role playing with.
I generally don't subscribe to the whole levels should be taken away or in roleplay, mainly because it has to deal with the fact that your level kind of shows your commitment to the character that you have in a way. Now, obviously, there are anomalies like Turwinkle, but generally, whenever I look upon someone that is like level 40 or something like that, I don't treat them at first glance as, like, you know, as powerful as my character. But that's just my personal preference. I mean, I'm not saying that it's wrong, it's just the way I view it.
And see, I'm the exact opposite of Vlad, to where you can be a level 1 character, and if you can roleplay it and you can sell it to me, I will buy it. See, I don't necessarily care if you are a level 1, you're a level 15. I don't necessarily buy into the whole that the level means anything, because to me, I've encountered so many people over the years, various degrees of role players, that I've never found a correlation between level and their role play ability. I know several, I mean, I can think just off the top of my head, several great role players that I've encountered over the years that for one reason or another, they weren't max level. There were a few of them that didn't even buy, you know, if we were in, you know, the Cataclysm expansion, they didn't have something past the Burning Crusade. They never bought Wrath of the Lich King, you know, things like that they didn't have those levels because they just simply enjoyed role playing, and they weren't necessarily interested in just, you know, doing all these quests and leveling all of these. And it took nothing away from their character as a role play character. In the same respect, I don't look at it as somebody being 110 and then that means anything in terms of their commitment to the character. Because one, you can quite easily buy boosted tunes at this point. Two, you can easily transfer from a PvE or PvP server to an RP server, and you're just getting started in your 110. So things like that generally don't even weigh upon my opinion. I don't look at somebody's level. I look at, do they have, maybe a transmog or a RP set that they're using, things like that would show me that they're committed to their character. Do they have an RP add-on where they filled out a roleplay profile? And again, that doesn't mean that they've filled it out with tons and tons of information, but have they at least put forth an effort? Things like that, I think, to me, really contribute to whether or not I would buy somebody's ability. But at the same time, I do agree with what's being said here in terms of there's a certain amount of realism that needs to be put into play that, you're probably not going to be, unless it's under extreme circumstances, you're probably not going to be able to take down like this whole slew of Stormwind guards or something like that without some incredible story to go along with it. But at the same,
have you met Vlad? I don't know if you've met Vlad.
Yes, I deal with him on a regular basis, John. But I will say something that one thing that I've always thought of in terms of role play was, say if you had somebody that came in and they're like, I just defeated 25 Stormwind guards. You have several options with your character to that. You can choose not to believe them. Your character can choose not to believe them. You can choose to believe that maybe maybe they ran into one guard and he was drunk and, about half passed out on the side of the road. And that's about all it took. But there are ways that you as a role player, if somebody else is coming at you and presenting this information that you have a difficult time believing, there are ways that you as the player and your character can look at those situations and bring them more in line with what you're interested in and what, your level of role play action. I don't know how you would phrase that part, what your level of interest is in that situation.
This is actually would be an interesting roleplay topic to talk about, is combat roleplay, because that's where it would really come into play.
Oh yeah.
I think the level spectrum is the way to quantify things, because you can't necessarily do that in most roleplay. It's all loosey goosey. Well, it's kind of like the whole when you're playing Cowboys and Indians with kids, as kids. You're like, I got you, like I shot you, bang bang, the other kid's like, no, you didn't, you missed. Like, it becomes that, what's it called? Well, that contest. Whereas, having something like that quantifies things. Now there's several different ways, other than just like my level's higher than yours. Like, you can even do /duel, /roll. Or you can kind of work with the character, work with the person. But generally, for random roleplay, I think it's a better way.
Right.
I agree with Leila on the fact that if you are truly committed and I can see it in your level 1 character, yeah, I'll go with it. But it's far and few between.
Well, I've interviewed hundreds of guilds, and most of them have. For a majority of the guilds, they require you to be a certain level before they're going to even entertain you coming part of their roleplay guild, because they don't want someone coming in at level 1. Number one, I think you do need to try to get to 110, whether you roleplay through it or not, but try to get to 110, because what that's going to do is that's going to open up the entire World of Warcraft to you to be able to roleplay in certain areas. So if the guild is going to, Argus, and you're not there, you can't go with them because you're not high enough level. Or if they go to a level where you're just barely high enough and mobs are constantly coming in to kill you, it kind of ruins the role play. So, I mean, a lot of guilds require that, but I think I agree with Leila as well, is that, just because you're 110 doesn't mean you're the top of the line role player. Again, your level doesn't dictate how well you role play, I think is the point there. It helps you to role play to have a high level character, but it doesn't make you a good role
Yeah.
player to be 110. Yeah.
All right, I think we got one more left.
One more, Leila.
Head out. So we're running a
The
little bit
moon
over
has gone
today.
down. Yeah.
Well, finally tonight we have Oliver, who says a healthy separation of IC and OOC is important, but also an acceptance that sometimes the two overlap. If someone is uncomfortable or not having fun OOC, then you need to rework what's happening IC. Story integrity is not more important than people having fun. RP isn't some large-scale production with an audience that cares about continuity. It's a relatively private ordeal with a small group that's supposed to cater to their enjoyment.
Very well said.
Well, I can agree with
Alright.
this a little bit, but
Wow, John,
no,
lay it on us.
Okay, I agree with him that again a healthy separation is important, and I also agree that there's sometimes an overlap, and that if someone's uncomfortable, not having fun, then sometimes you can rework it a little bit. But again, I deal with a lot of guilds, and you see a lot of guilds, like Vlad mentioned earlier, break up because storylines have gone bad. And a lot of times it starts with one person not, again, having the drama moment and ruining that fun for everybody. Now, if he's talking about a small, between me and, my roleplay partner, and it doesn't work out, that's all right. But for a lot of guilds, roleplay incorporates pretty much everyone in that guild. And so if you're in a guild, and even if you have a personal roleplay with one other person that's in that guild, and things go awry, sometimes that will still come in and affect the guild. And so I think it's important that, it's not all about me and my character and you didn't do this right, so I don't want to do this anymore, to where you have to change everything to accommodate that person. I think it's, for a lot of times, it is a large scale production and everybody's participating in it. And sometimes there are guilds that role play with other guilds, and it can wreck the entire thing. So,
well, I think I'll play devil's advocate here, John, and say that sometimes I think that kind of maybe a mirror to what you're saying about role play guilds and the drama and that sort of thing that happens is sometimes you will have a guild leader who takes it upon themselves to take a guild and their story in a direction that the guild is not interested in going. And I think I think that's a little bit more of what's being said here. If you take your character to the Decilis, for example, or you take your guild to the Decilis, for example, and you create exactly, and you expect them to sit there for a month doing a Decilis campaign that nobody's interested in, and instead people just aren't logging in and all of that sort of thing, you're going to have problems. And I think that that's a little bit more of what Oliver's trying to say here, in that you want to make the production, you want to make the story for the enjoyment of the people that are participating in it. You don't want to take them to some place like a desert and expect them to be able to entertain themselves for a month on a campaign, especially if you're not providing them any regular, activities or guild events or things like that to do. You want to incorporate things that, are the interest of the guild, the theme of the guild, things like that would benefit your members. Like I said, to mirror what you were saying, John, it's important to consider, if you are running a role-playing guild or heading a role-playing group of any kind, that you really want to make sure that the group is enjoying what you're presenting, the story that you're presenting to them.
All right. Well, and I think that's well said. And I think, Vlad, let's wrap it up here.
Yep. How do you want to wrap it up, John?
With a pretty pink bow.
All right.
Yeah.
We'll just stretch your ears out here.
Wow.
Anyway. So that's about it, guys.
Wow.
Hope you guys learned something. It was fun. Did you guys have fun?
I had fun.
I always have.
We just hope you didn't think it sucked.
Yeah. Hold
Yeah.
on, Vlad.
Get out of my face.
But no,
You two are
I think,
impossible.
again, folks, you want to be a good role player. I think ultimately it boils down to respecting folks around you. Have fun with it. I think, everything that was said here tonight really, I think, resonates, and hopefully it resonated with you. So join us next Saturday, 7 p.m. Pacific, right here on For the Roleplay for another great episode. And we'll be putting the topic out to you folks here coming up soon. So be on the lookout for that as well. And Leila, where can folks reach us?
Oh, God. On the fly here, John. Well, if they're here on Twitch, they already know that they can find us at twitch.tv/fortheroleplay. If they are watching this VOD on the YouTubes, then yeah, we're on Twitch. You can watch us live, or you can watch the VOD if you can't catch us live. That's fine too.
For the Roleplay.
Yeah, For the Roleplay. Or you can find us on Twitter at For the Roleplay, all one word, nothing fancy in there.
They can also email us at, was it
FTRPcast at gmail.com.
Yep. And we'd love to hear your opinions, thoughts, ideas for shows, all that good stuff. Criticisms are welcome as well. Be nice. We raised you that way.
Don't be rude.
That's right. So with that, guys, thank you so much for joining us, all of you. Let your friends
Please tell your friends about us.
That's right. Let your friends know. And, if you haven't subscribed, do so. And you'll be notified when we come on.
Get all the juicy bits of RP.
All the juicy bits. I've got a Turwinkle Talks episode coming up for the roleplay. We're going to be talking with the Dwarven Guild, the Dwarven Vanguard. So look forward to that. Yeah.
Break out, ye dwarves!
That's right.
I really want to do like a dwarf kind of... Like, I never could, because I feel like dwarves are like a community character, and that'd be awesome if that guild turns out. I'd like to see that.
Oh, yeah, they're a great guild. They've been around for a long time. I did an interview with them a few years back, and they have some new officers and some new storylines going on, new folks, and so they contacted me and would like to do an interview. So we're going to be definitely be doing it here on For the Roleplay. The Turwinkle Talks with the Dwarven Vanguard. We're just getting the time and place set up. So look forward to that coming up.
Most definitely. I might make a dwarf if it turns out.
Oh, man, that'd be great.
we should make dwarves together, John.
Oh, man.
You, me, and Leila. Then we can tie our beards together.
Oh, the dwarves don't do that, sir.
Maybe my dwarf does.
It's,
See, I open up to you, John, and then you just shut me
Wow.
down. Like you wonder why I do that kind of crap to you.
all right, folks.
God.
So with that, again, we got a lot of good stuff up and coming. So thank you so much for joining us. And again, every Saturday night here on twitch.tv/fortheroleplay. Join us next week. So thank you again, and bye-bye, guys. Bye-bye.
See you later.
Bye.
Bye-bye.